Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. As always, thank you for joining me. If you could, hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get right to it. Well, as many of you may know, over the last week, Bitcoin hit $16,000 in value. Basically, one Bitcoin is worth about 16 grand, which is a huge explosion. I think it's over 200% of growth just this year in the digital currency known as Bitcoin. Now, there are other cryptocurrencies out there, other digital currencies, and there are a few risks associated with cryptocurrency as well as, along with Bitcoin and everything like that. And here are just a few of those particular risks involved. One of the first risks that you're really going to have to deal with when it comes to Bitcoin is going to be the fact that it's easily stolen. Like, there are ways that you can store your Bitcoin on, on the different exchanges and stuff from what I've read. But at the same time, though, those aren't considered very safe because someone can easily hack your code, your information, and steal all of it. And then you have, and the follow up to that is you really have no recourse. In a lot of countries, you're not going to have recourse because you're going to have no proof it was ever there in the first place. As well, in that same vein, is you can take it and say put it on, say store it in a folder somewhere, off the exchange. But there again, someone could hack your computer and it's all gone. And there again, you have no recourse. Unlike, say, here in the U.S., you have a few $100,000 in the bank, and all of a sudden, for some reason, somebody hacks your account and steals all your money. The thing is, your banking institution can find out who took it, where it came, where it went, and they can find a way to, find the fraud and find a way to reimburse you the money. And there again, you're FDIC insured up to about $250,000, I believe the number is. So you have some protections when it comes to regular, everyday currency. And this is a big thing. I mean, if you put all your ducks or all your eggs in one basket, and somebody comes along and smashes that basket, you may have a problem. So if you're putting all your money, if you put all your money into Bitcoin, then someone steals it, you don't have much of a recourse. Now, I've heard there are a lot of ways that you can limit this risk, and there are ways that you can store it securely through encryption and stuff to make sure that it's at least harder for people to steal. Just know that if you invest in Bitcoin, that is a risk that someone could easily steal it if it's not secured properly. And then here's this other risk that you really take. Is the market involving like Bitcoin itself is very volatile. Because there was one day that it popped to $11,000, worth almost $11,000 in value, and then all of a sudden it dropped 30 or 40% in the course of just a few hours. At least of the gain that they had just had. They were up over $11,000, and they dropped down to, I think I saw something as low as about $7,000. In the course of just a few hours. It's kind of like the stock market, except there again, there's not a lot to go on. There's not a lot of knowing exactly when or how it's going to just all of a sudden fall, in value. So valuation is very important. It's also a very big risk factor when it comes to Bitcoin, because if you aren't careful, you could buy in at the wrong time, and then you could lose everything. And say you don't. The last thing you would want to have happen is go in, you buy it. Say it drops back down to about $10,000, and you buy in at $10,000, and say you were to buy that much in Bitcoin. I guess that would give you one Bitcoin if it was worth $10,000. Now, I'm not saying that anyone's actually going to do that. I'm just saying that if you did, and then all of a sudden, say an hour later, all of a sudden it's worth half of that, then you've lost a lot of money. Now, a lot of people are going to sit there and say, well, it's risk reward and it's part of life. And I agree. It is, risk is a part of life. It's what you do. But you do need to be mindful of the fact that this is a big possibility. That the cryptocurrency markets are not as stable as you might want them to be. And I think that's part of the intrigue. I think part of the intrigue is the risk involved. And the fact that you could, as much as you could lose, you could end up doubling, tripling, or quadrupling your investment very quickly. And I think if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, my suggestion is to make sure you do it for the long haul, and not just, think you're going to get rich and then pull out as soon as you lose a little money. My suggestion would be to hang in there and try to wait down the road and see if when it goes back up, because the way Bitcoin's been going, it goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down. It's just as volatile as some of the crazy stocks on the stock market. So just know that is a risk that you have to take if you're going to get into Bitcoin. I personally have not bought Bitcoin because I really don't have any money to do so. But lastly, one of the biggest threats to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all the other, and everything, isn't necessarily the risk, isn't necessarily the fact that it can be easily stolen. The problem is government regulation of it. Because the bigger it gets, the more governments are trying to regulate and curb its use. You've got maybe a handful of nations that have outright banned cryptocurrencies, period. And you have others that are working on it. You've got nations like Morocco, for example, and Bolivia. They've outright banned Bitcoin, the use of Bitcoin. You can go to prison for this kind of stuff in some of the nations that have banned the use of Bitcoin. And then you've got places like China and South Korea where it's not per se illegal to use, but the government severely restricts where you can use it and how you can use it, and they severely restrict, your ability to obtain it. And don't be surprised if down the road the U.S. government itself here in the United States decides that, this is competing with our money, with the dollar. Therefore, we need to squash it. And trust me, the American government is good at trying to add regulations to things that are innovative and running, kind of running on its own. The U.S. government loves to add regulations to shit, and I support a lot of regulations, but on some things I don't. There are other things that I don't support a lot of regulation on. Like you have governments, state governments trying to regulate Uber and Lyft and things like that. You got, all sorts in governments across the world trying to prevent things like Uber and Lyft from existing. You got governments like the United States that are trying, in their best, and they're trying to do things in their best interest to prevent people from using said Bitcoin. Sorry for the phone ring. But that is a big risk, because government regulation is a very big risk and could really have a big effect on the value and the long-standing nature of Bitcoin. Anyhow, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, hit the like button, and I'll see you down the road.